What do we make of beauty? Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Persohn. You can contact me at pastor@mascot.church. That's my email address, or in the comments below. If you like these videos, like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see if we can grow the channel. Today we want to talk about the argument from beauty, or what do we make from beauty? This is a bit of a different journey for myself, at least publicly, or at least on the internet. This topic has fascinated me for over 2 years, and I have kind of sat on it, but now is a good time to share it. We want to talk about beauty as an argument, or an indicator for the existence of God, but we want to talk today more about beauty just as itself, just as a thing on its own. And we want to ask what we make of it. We know that there are so many things that we see that are beautiful. We see things in nature that have beauty, and they inspire us and they attract us. In the book of Psalms, chapter 27, verse 4, it says, or the 27th Psalm, "One thing have I asked of the Lord, that I will seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord, to inquire in his temple." So the Bible actually speaks of God as beautiful, God as perfect in every way. And this is going to help us round today's discussion out as we just take a couple of moments and look at this most interesting topic. C.S. Lewis said, well, let me pop C.S. Lewis quote up on the screen for you. He said, "The sweetest thing in all my life has been the longing to reach the mountain, to find the place where all the beauty came from. My country, the place where I ought to have been born." C.S. Lewis. So C.S. Lewis had a quest for beauty in his life as well. Now, we have talked about various arguments for the existence of God in the past on this channel, things that I've just touched on. One was the Cosmological Argument, which begins with whatever begins to exist has a cause. I've got notes on this side just to help me to stay on track if you wonder why I'm looking over there all the time. And that's the Kalam argument. It has essentially 5 points. The next one is Leibniz's contingency argument, which has similarly, and it starts with everything that exists has an explanation for its existence. Now, I have what I like to call my 7, which is a kind of a hybrid of those two arguments that I like to use. An argument doesn't mean a debate or a raging, thing between two people. It's a way of presenting information. Mine begins. The first one is that from nothing, nothing comes, or the Latin, and again, I'm going to just use my notes. What is memorized, you sometimes forget when you're just looking at a little camera, so you don't have the audience to help you along here. Ex nihilo nihil fit is the Latin phrase that means from nothing, nothing comes. From there, we say there was a time when any particular thing was not. In other words, something other than that particular thing caused it to be. Then I go on and I say, nothing can be self-caused. Nothing can be self-caused. In other words, even it would have to exist before it existed in order to be self-caused. And from there, the next point is that nothing can have nothing as a cause. That would make sense, right? No thing can have nothing as a cause. Now, when I say nothing, I mean no heat, no cold, no black, no white, no space, nothing at all. And from there, we say that all things are therefore dependent on something else. Everything that exists, I've got a hot beverage cup here. This is dependent. It was dependent on something for its existence. It's dependent on something for its ongoing existence. It's dependent on the fact that I don't smash it with a hammer, okay? All effects, things, or actions have causes, and all causes come before their effects. So that's my next place. All causes come before their effects. Before this was hot water had to be put inside it. In this case, coffee. Do you mind if I take a drink? All things, all causes come before their effects. Therefore, if you go back far enough, you end up with nothing, no thing. Now, those are my 7 points. We're not going to do them in detail today, but that's kind of how you might present an argument for the need for the existence of an eternal being. And that all comes around from Leibniz's question, which is this one here. Why is there something rather than nothing? Okay, so you have those kinds of arguments. But today we're going to look at a different argument. We're going to look at the argument from beauty. But I'm not sure how far we'll get today. Maybe next week we'll dig into more of the technical aspect of that if I choose to. I'm not sure. This actually is going to be Beauty Week. We're going to talk about, there'll be this topic on beauty, my life lessons from the crazy Dutch farmer. My last one is going to be about beauty. And then my live stream will probably be around this topic as well. So we'll see how much information I have and where we go from there. And whether or not the live stream is eventually published live or not, I don't know. Anyways, we're talking lots about this. Well, let's get into this topic here and think about some things. Why are things beautiful? Why are things beautiful? It's incorrect to say that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, because some things are judged by an individual's perspective, but other things are kind of universally considered to be beautiful, like a mountainscape or a forestscape. People would say, wow, that's just plain beautiful. Now, you might say that we have, some might say that we are attracted to beautiful things because of maybe our evolutionary background. Well, that's not really particularly a good argument. Of course, I'm not in that camp, but the point here is that there are things that are beautiful that are profoundly dangerous, yet they're still beautiful to us. They're still beautiful. You say, well, this thing is beautiful, but I don't think I'd want it as a house pet. There are things in nature, like cliff faces, for example, that are beautiful. We look at them and we say, this is just beautiful. But we have to ask ourselves why we are driven to call it beautiful, and why it is something that people will just look at and say, well, this is just desirable. This is just something I want to watch. Maybe in nature, we see things that are beautiful to us in one respect, but not in another respect. For example, we might see a plant. This particular plant is toxic. And we might say, well, this is such a great plant. I'm going to bring it in the house and show it off. Well, that's fine. Just don't eat the thing because it is dangerous. Yet, it's also beautiful. How does that work? Why? Why is that? Why is it that that people will sit at the beach or stand at the beach and look out at the water, and you ask them, why are you there? Why do you come here? Well, it's peaceful. I'm sorry, folks, that's not peaceful. There's a lot going on. There's birds flying overhead. That sand is dangerous. I have run in my life probably 3,000 kilometers on sand. If you add it all up, I haven't just added it all, but I think it would be about that over time, because I do a fair bit of sand running. It's every time you run, it's dangerous. What are you going to step in? Are you going to break your toe on something? You're going to cut your feet on glass. I've only ever done that a couple of times, but it looks peaceful, but it's dangerous. In that water, it's dangerous. Where we live, we have blue bottles. We've got some poisonous things that exist in the water. Say, well, I'm just looking at the water because it's peaceful. I'll give you peaceful. You want a peaceful place? A dark room with blinds on your eyes and earplugs. Now that's peaceful. Oh, you're really not standing at the water. You're really not waiting there because it's peaceful. You're waiting there because it's beautiful. Think about it, isn't it? Think about it. It's that attraction to something that we haven't taken the time to think about. Now, in science, the word beautiful is not used as much as the word elegant. I'm going to put a quote up from on Objective Beauty by David Deutsch. Let me see here. Let's pop this up here. What is the connection between aesthetic beauty and scientific argument? This is the question he was asked. Beauty in science is called elegance. Physicists will, as a matter of practice, take elegance as a guide. There is the phrase, many a beautiful theory was slain by an ugly fact. This is very true. But when it happens, we inevitably find an underlying theory that is even more beautiful than the theory that was slain. So beauty cannot be used as a criterion of what is true, but it is at least the very useful guide as to what to try next. I tell you what, that's a powerful quote. Now, he's not preaching to us, but he's just talking about that. The fact that beauty, elegance is a guide to us. And I love the quote, really makes me think a lot about this. Now, if you think about artistic beauty for a moment, it takes effort to get there. It takes effort to make things beautiful. You can slap a bit of food on a plate, slop a bit of gruel on there or whatever, or even take nice ingredients and slam them down, right? But you can also take the time to make the thing look beautiful, to make it appear beautiful, to make it appear pleasing to all of the senses. Well, why is that even important? It's just food. Now, to some of us, it doesn't mean very much. It is just food, but to others, this sense of beauty. Much beauty is an imitation of what God has already given us, of what's already in nature. But it still takes effort. It does not happen accidentally. Sometimes when we get to beautiful things, we tend to care about them as much as we care about ourselves, maybe more. Think about the Mona Lisa or the Eiffel Tower or the Sydney Opera House or some of these magnificent works of art. We tend to care about them. We tend to care that they're looked after. We have a sense of affection for these things. It's wow. Well, why is that? Beauty reminds us of the transcendent. It reminds us of something that's greater than ourselves. It's not utilitarian, only utilitarian. It's not just there for just the purpose of existing, of doing a thing. It has an additional purpose. It has something deeper that draws us to eternity. Do you know, I'm so excited about this topic, I can barely ask myself if I'm preaching it correctly or not, okay? Imagine if you walked along the beach at sunset, or just an open area at a sunset time, and you looked and you see all the people watching the sunset. And you see people of every tribe and color and kindred and nation. All sorts of people are impressed by sunsets or sunrises. If you looked at the beauty of a sunrise or the beauty of a sunset and you saw someone who was unimpressed by it, like, nah, said, there's something wrong with you. Don't you see the beauty in this? Don't you see the wonder? What makes a sunrise beautiful? It's profoundly dangerous, frankly. If you get close enough to the sun, like, man, what makes it beautiful? I don't know. There's something inside us that draws us to the transcendent. The other interesting thing is that that beauty is often determined by the opinion of the consensus, by the opinion of a larger group of people, a larger crowd. Now, there's something, an individual will look at a sunset. I can pretty much guarantee you that even a hermit living on a mountain all by himself is going to admire a sunset, not even knowing why he admires the sunset. It's just there, natural beauty. But when you think about works of art, what makes a work of art something special is many people say this is special. Many people see the beauty in it. That's really, really interesting. It's very, very interesting. So what we're doing here is we're wondering or seeing God as divine artist. God as divine artist. I want to introduce you to a word. Well, bring a word to memory and as we push the topic a little farther. You know the word sacred? Set apart, a sacred thing. Now I'm going to give you two more words. To consecrate is to set something apart as sacred. Okay, this thing is very special. Now, usually it's spoken of in terms of spiritual things, God, eternity, and so on. But you can also have a consecrated place that means something to you as a people, maybe a war museum, or even a museum itself, or a library or something, or a cenotaph or something. It's consecrated. You set it apart as a sacred thing, a sacred place. The opposite word is to desecrate. To take the sacredness away from a thing. In our culture, at the moment, we have a culture that is big on desecration. You look at our modern entertainment, the voices that we hear, desecration seems like the constant theme. Things that were beautiful are now exposed. People talk about in the most open, profane ways about intimate parts of their bodies. And you say, what are you doing? It's desecration, taking what is sacred and desecrating it, taking the sacred from it. When beauty goes, things that are sacred, that are beautiful, tend to lose their beauty. When beauty goes in a culture, these things happen. I'm going to put a couple of slides up here of some kind of well-known pictures from the old Soviet era, the old Soviet Empire, where as it started to fade, we begin to see a lot of these things. These are some apartments in Eastern Germany, and these sort of things went on and on and on. You see the graffiti on the trains, you see the old, kind of uglyish apartments, and that go on for miles or whatever. They sort of never end. Everybody's apartment looks like everybody else's apartment, and so on. Now, you have this sense of what could be beautiful has been desecrated, or it has no beauty. The beauty's been taken away from it. Apartments don't have to look ugly. They don't have to be that way. They could be beautiful. It would be possible to make something like that beautiful. So when the culture declines, you have the sense of desecration. You have the sense of what was sacred is no longer sacred. We're removing the beauty of a thing. Well, let's push this a little bit farther and ask ourselves some more about this. The late Roger Scruton wrote a lot about beauty, and I think probably he's the one who influenced me to think about beauty. And then when I heard about it as an argument for God, I thought, yes, I get this. I understand something I never really saw. You can see his videos. I think he's interviewed on YouTube many times. He has a longer commentary on Vimeo. You can find it, Sir Roger Scruton, Beauty, and he talks about the value of beauty in our culture and the value of beauty in our society. He says that one of the things that happens when beauty goes is you tend to have a thing he calls kitsch. Kitsch. Well, I'll show you a picture of kitsch. And this is a really interesting thing. I never really thought about it until I read Roger Scruton. He's talking about the fact that that when beauty begins to fade, we no longer the images that we create no longer point to the ethereal. They no longer point to something greater than ourselves. They no longer stimulate our imagination. What they do is exist for their own sake, right? That's what kitsch does. It's that Disneyfication of our culture. And I thought, yes, that's just so fascinating. It's interesting. Now, the thing about beauty, and the beauty that we're going to talk about when we talk about divine beauty, is that it permeates everything. I don't know if you've ever watched or enjoyed on the internet the work of cabinet makers or fine artisans. If you do, you'll notice that someone might build a cabinet like the desk I'm showing here. And you say, okay, that's really great. That's nice work. You obviously have a lot of skill doing that. What they do is they spend time on the visible bits, making them look nice. But then they work on the bits of the drawers and that nobody's ever going to look at. And not only do they use the same time-consuming, complicated technology to build and what they do is they use the same time-consuming, complicated technology to build the back of the drawers than the front. So in other words, I've got this beautiful ornate carpentry and all that that's all visible in the front of my cabinets, yes. Look, if I was building it, I'd say, that's fine. That's the only thing that everybody sees. But when I open the thing, I'm just going to use cheap metal brackets and a bit of glue and nails and slam the thing together. At least it works. But no, a true artisan says everything that I build has to be beautiful, whether people see it or whether they don't. Whether people see it or whether they don't. Isn't that interesting? Now, when we approach life that way, when we make the things around us appear beautiful, and they are beautiful, of course, not only do they attract people, but they help people to see beyond. They help people to see into the future. When I was putting this video together, I thought about bridges. There's so many really ugly bridges in the world. And you probably wouldn't stop to sit down, oh, you might, and have a picnic around a really ugly bridge. We have a few in our city. Of course, we also have one of the world's most famous bridges in our city, which is the Sydney Harbor Bridge. But I found this picture here of a really pleasant country bridge. What you can see here, you see this is a cast iron bridge from many years ago. You can see that it was built probably for horses and probably for people to walk across. But it was not just built for a utilitarian purpose. It was built for beauty. You would take your special, significant other, and you'd take a picnic basket, and you'd sit down outside this bridge, and you'd enjoy a meal looking at this thing. Why? Not because it's a bridge, but because it's beautiful. You'd be attracted to that. Okay? Isn't that really interesting? Isn't that really interesting? See, nature is beautiful like art. Nature is beautiful like art is. I could say art is beautiful like nature, but I'm going somewhere with this. It's difficult to make things beautiful. It takes a tremendous amount of effort to make average things beautiful. Think about that bridge. Think of all of the elements that came together to make it beautiful. Nature is beautiful like art, okay? If it takes effort to make things beautiful for us, which is just pretty mundane, simple things, why wouldn't it take effort for God? Why wouldn't it take the effort of an artist to build nature? I think you know where I'm going here. The effort of an artist to build the things in nature. Now, what's also interesting, coming back to my cabinet discussion, is that the more we understand nature, the more we have powerful instruments that can see the small, we see beauty in the things that the senses cannot perceive. The more we're able to look out and see the great, see the vast heavens, we see beauty that we could never see with the natural eye. The more we understand chemical interactions and so on, we see beauty that this is just wonderful. This is beauty. As we begin to understand how the cell works, say, this is beautiful. Why did you design this so beautifully? You could have designed it square and in a more utilitarian manner, but yet, Lord God, you designed it beautifully. I love chiasms in Scripture. I need to come back and do some chiasms on the channel. Chiasms are literary constructs that anybody can find in Scripture, that they appear all the way through Scripture, and they demonstrate the beauty of how the Scriptures themselves were put together. In fact, the human body is built chiastically. Living creatures are built chiastically. The far left finger corresponds to the far right finger, and so on. This whole model, I've talked a lot about that. There's some chiasm videos on the site. I need to do more about this. Beauty pervades everything in God's creation. His own scriptures, his own words were written with that sense of beauty. Every element of nature testifies of the power of a creator. Even the most crass, the most difficult, the most hardened person you'll ever meet can stop and look at something and say, that's just beautiful. In fact, we use the language of beauty to please the people around us. If there's something that the people that you love, that a person that you love desires, considers beautiful, you acquire that for them, or you give that a place of honor in their lives. Now, one person finds perhaps flowers beautiful, another finds a nice box of tools beautiful, okay? Yet, you say, this is a thing that you find that's beautiful. Then you find some people who aren't particularly moved by physical beauty. You might see the occasional guy who doesn't really care too much what the house is like or whatever, but he works on a piece of equipment. And when he hears that piece of equipment working right, he just listens to it and he says, that's beautiful. So he seeks beauty even there. Well, we began this talk today. What is my time like? I'm going to have to just check. I can't see it on the bottom of the screen. It doesn't matter. We began this talk today by using some of the arguments for God. Let me flip to my notes here. I'm not going to put them on the screen, but I'll give you the philosophical arguments. A philosophical argument for beauty that kind of works like the Kalam argument or some of these others. It's a 5-point argument. Okay, here we go. Let's try it. I've got to read it because it's not in the front of my mind just yet. Here we go. Everything physically beautiful could conceivably be more beautiful. That's point number 1. No matter how beautiful, how symmetrical, how wonderful a thing is, and not all beauty is symmetry, by the way. Not all beauty is symmetry, but everything physically beautiful could conceivably be more beautiful. You see, there are things that are beautiful that, in some way, that aren't really attractive. Very, very few people will stop and look at the beauty of a brick wall for very long, even though it has symmetrical beauty. It's like, isn't that interesting? It's not beautiful to very many people, maybe a bricklayer, but we'd rather look at a sunrise than a brick wall. Isn't that interesting? Okay? See, a brick wall does not necessarily remind us of something eternal, something greater than ourselves, but a sunrise does. Something that is unattainable does. I better go back to my 5 points here, or I'm going to run too long. Everything physically beautiful could conceivably be more beautiful. Therefore, all physical beauty falls short of perfection. Stay with me. Therefore, perfect beauty exists only in its eternal or its ethereal or its non-material form. Perfect beauty exists in something beyond the material. Therefore, the timeless idea of beauty comes from that non-material, independent thing, something greater than ourselves. I just restated that. Therefore, perfect beauty describes God. Wow. Can I give you these? I'll just give them quickly without comments again. Everything physically beautiful could be conceivably more beautiful. All physical beauty falls short of perfection. Perfect beauty exists only in the eternal form. Therefore, the timeless idea of beauty comes from the non-material, independent, superior, perfect world. Okay? Therefore, this beauty describes God. This beauty points to God. I really think the argument from beauty is one of the best ways to start a discussion with somebody who's just curious about eternal things. Why are things so beautiful? What is beauty drawing you to? What's it causing you to think about? Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Al Persohn. I hope this message inspired you to think about some things in a different way. All going well, we'll talk a little bit more about that this week, and maybe I might even do a part 2 next week. It all depends. God bless you. Come back soon. Like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video.